The boy stood backstage gripping the edge of his shirt so tightly that his knuckles turned white. The fabric was thin, faded from years of washing, borrowed from a cousin who was taller and broader than him. His shoes were too big, the soles already peeling, tied tight with double knots so they wouldn't slip off under the bright lights. Around him, contestants whispered nervously, some warming up their voices, others pacing back and forth. But he stayed still, eyes closed, breathing slowly, as if afraid that any movement might shatter the courage he had gathered. His name was Mateo Reyes. He was 12 years old, from a small fishing village in the Philippines where the sea decided whether you ate well or slept hungry. Mateo had never been on a plane before this journey. He had never stayed in a hotel. The stage waiting for him on America's Got Talent was larger than any place he had ever imagined, larger than the schoolyard where he once sang during recess, larger than the cramped wooden house where his family lived with holes in the roof patched by plastic sheets. What the audience did not know was that just 3 years earlier, Mateo had nearly stopped singing altogether. His father had been a fisherman, like his father before him. Every morning before sunrise, he would push the small boat into the water while Mateo watched from the shore, humming softly to himself. Singing was something Mateo did without thinking. It filled the silence when there was nothing else to distract him from the worries of a household where money was always short. His mother used to say that when Mateo sang, even the walls seemed to listen. Then one night, a storm came without warning. The waves were violent, the wind howling louder than any song Mateo had ever sung. His father did not come home. They searched for days. Boats from nearby villages joined in. The sea gave back nothing. No boat, no body, just silence. After that, Mateo's home became quieter in a way that felt heavy. His mother tried to be strong, but grief has a way of sinking into the smallest cracks. Mateo stopped singing for months. Every time he opened his mouth, his chest tightened, as if his voice would betray him and let the pain spill out in front of everyone. When food ran short, Mateo began working after school, helping unload fish, carrying heavy buckets for men twice his size. At night, he did homework by candlelight when electricity failed. Sometimes he fell asleep with his head on his notebook, dreams filled with echoes of his father's laughter and the songs they used to sing together on the beach. One evening, during a village gathering, someone asked Mateo to sing. He shook his head at first. But his mother looked at him, her eyes tired yet hopeful, and whispered that his father would have wanted to hear him sing again. Mateo took a breath and sang. His voice was small but clear, trembling at first, then growing stronger with every note. People stopped talking. Some closed their eyes. Others cried openly. In that moment, Mateo realized something important. Singing did not erase the pain, but it gave it a place to go. Word spread quickly. Videos recorded on old phones made their way online. A volunteer teacher helped submit his audition for America's Got Talent, never expecting anything to come of it. When the email arrived inviting Mateo to audition, his mother thought it was a joke. It wasn't. Now, standing backstage in America, Mateo could hear the muffled roar of the crowd. His heart pounded so hard he wondered if the judges could hear it before he even stepped onto the stage. When his name was called, he walked out slowly, blinking under the lights. The applause felt distant, unreal. Simon Cowell leaned forward slightly, studying the boy in front of him. The other judges smiled gently, unsure of what to expect. Simon asked where he was from. Mateo answered softly, his accent thick, his hands shaking. Simon asked why he was here. Mateo swallowed and spoke about his father, about singing by the sea, about wanting to help his mother so she wouldn't have to work herself into exhaustion every day. His voice cracked, and the audience grew quiet. Then Simon asked the question that made Mateo freeze for half a second. "What are you going to sing?" Mateo named a song that carried weight far beyond his years. A song about loss, about holding on when everything seems gone. A song his father loved. The music began. Mateo closed his eyes, just like he used to do on the beach, and sang the first note. The sound that came out of him was not what anyone expected. It wasn't just good. It was haunting. His voice carried a raw honesty that cut straight through the room. Every lyric felt lived in, like a memory pulled straight from his chest. The audience leaned forward. One judge covered her mouth in disbelief. Simon's expression changed, the skepticism melting into something else entirely. Halfway through the song, Mateo's voice soared, powerful yet fragile, and something happened that no one could have predicted. The backing track suddenly cut out. For a split second, the room froze. Matteo opened his eyes, panic flashing across his face. He could hear murmurs in the audience. His heart dropped. This was it. The moment everything fell apart. But then, he kept singing. No music. Just his voice. And it was even more beautiful. The silence in the theater was complete. You could hear people breathing, sobbing quietly. Matteo sang like the world depended on it, like his father was listening somewhere beyond the lights. When the music finally came back in, the audience erupted into applause mid-song, unable to hold it in any longer. When Matteo finished, there was a pause that felt eternal. Then the entire theater stood up. The applause was thunderous. People were crying openly now. The judges stood as well, clapping, some wiping their eyes. Simon remained silent for a moment longer than anyone else, then slowly stood and joined the ovation. Matteo looked confused, overwhelmed, tears streaming down his face. He bowed repeatedly, not knowing what else to do. Simon finally spoke, his voice quieter than usual. He said that performances like this were why the show existed. He said that Matteo did not just sing a song, he told a story that the world needed to hear. Another judge reached over and pressed the golden buzzer. Golden confetti rained down like sunlight. Matteo fell to his knees, sobbing uncontrollably. He had seen this moment on television back home, never believing it could happen to him. The audience chanted his name as he looked up through tears, golden flakes sticking to his hair and shirt. Backstage, his mother watched on a monitor, her hands shaking, tears pouring down her face. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to believe that her son's life could be different. But the biggest twist came later. After the show aired, donations poured in from around the world. But Matteo didn't keep the money for himself. He asked for help rebuilding fishing boats in his village. He asked for scholarships for other children who sang but had no way forward. He asked that his story be used to remind people that talent exists everywhere, even in places the world rarely looks. Matteo returned home a hero, not because he became famous, but because he stayed humble. Today, he still sings. Sometimes on big stages, sometimes by the sea, and every time he does, people remember that hope can come from the quietest places, carried by the smallest voices.